Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. I'm so glad you're with us to stay curious today on December 4th, 2024, as we're going to celebrate Gemini 7 launched in space. At that time, the longest crewed mission. Two men that knew each other very well and got to know each other a lot better after 14 days side by side. Jim Lovell, who is 96 years old, and Frank Borman, who passed away just about a year ago. Um, Great buddies throughout life, but boy, bonded like none other on a 14-day flight, sitting beside each other. And imagine the front seat of your vehicle has a lot more room than that. Going to say hi to my buddy Marty Winkle, manning the Streamlabs board there. Marty, talk to me on that USIAC family microphone. Do you think you and me would survive 14 days together in the front seat of a Volkswagen orbiting Earth?
Mark, I don't really think so. I don't even want to try.
You'd go on strike? You don't even want to try, huh? Well, we're kind of like an Oscar and Felix duo around here, but I respect my friendly Marine there and all his discipline, and he respects my uh, wild ways, I guess, here. So hope everyone enjoys looking back a little, not so much a Wikipedia account of this mission. A lot of you space geeks know a lot about space history. After all, this was in 1965. Okay, but very important to understanding the human biological processes, as well as the endurance on some of the hardware that was going to eventually be used or adapted to be used to the moon. So let's kick it off here. Let me get my YouTube up there. Looks like I'm going to be able to say hi to you all today. Steve Jokums, you're on there, of course. Thank you for faithfully watching from Fox Lake, Illinois. Gary Gerald's up there in the middle of Georgia. Dave Stangy's up there in the middle of Michigan. And I'll bet that's a temperature difference between the two states. We've got JPFL 142 says, hi, everyone. Well, thank you, JP. And Dean Babcock, good afternoon to you all. And Carlton Bailey saying hi to all the museum minions here. We're doing well and appreciate Carlton. Didn't get up in the middle of the night for a rocket launch that I saw on my phone went off. But we got a lot of things going on beginning of the year. Shuttle Fest is going to be April 11th through 12th. Look at here. We have got 3 astronauts booked that you would love to see either one of these 3. Eileen Collins, how A-list is that? She's actually would know me from 10 feet away, I'm blessed to say. Don Thomas, another great Ohio naut, and Joe Tanner, who had his hands all over the Hubble telescope on an EVA on the second upgrade of it. And we're going to add more astronauts. It's $90. You can go to the website and easily register for that. There's a great discount for the hotels. I know some of you already have, like Steve Jokums, just waiting to get the best airline ticket here. And believe you me, I am very humbled and flattered that we have started this Shuttle Fest. And on its 4th one, we have people willing to spend money on round trip plane tickets. Last year, we had 2 people come from Europe specifically for Shuttle Fest. Well, they came specifically for Shuttle Fest, but the rest of their family came for Disney World, Marty. So, and that's what's so beautiful about living here in paradise, 50 miles away, are the attractions, we call them, Universal and Disney World. You got the beaches, you got Daytona Speedway, you got all kinds of stuff going on here in April that we know will attract a big crowd. So you want to register, we're limiting it to 125 people because of the size of the hotel. Also, very emotional and reverent patriotic ceremony to honor our 17 fallen astronaut heroes of Apollo 11, Challenger, and Columbia. That will be January 26th, 2025 at Sandpoint Park. That is just north of the Spaceview Park that we talk about and are going to talk about today. Andy Allen is our guest keynote speaker. A great guy, Andy, and though this is a hard thing for astronauts to do, talk about their fallen family members, fellow workers, They always do it with great dignity, with a great message. So plan to join us with that. We will be doing that live on a remote. We're going to get that set up on YouTube. Marty's got a trivia question of the day. Marty,
Hey, which future astronaut was on the game show Name That Tune in 1957?
Steve Jokums, you are immune. You've answered your one for the week already. But and we're going to try to get some ways to send you guys some stuff. I'm going to get some swag your way, all of you, for participating in this. But this is an interesting one that I didn't exactly know. All right. So what astronaut was on Name That Tune in 1957? 1957, wow, that was like, what, 60? No, not quite 60, but 57 years ago. Marty, still, game shows are really what's popular on TV, aren't they?
Well, game shows, football,
Yeah.
and
Ninja Warriors on Monday night.
I'm trying to think of the term, like Survivor, things like that. It's
Documentaries or
no. Reality shows.
Oh, reality shows. Yeah. But boy, there's so many game shows and with twists to them and so forth. But they're super popular, and that's why Marty's got a trivia question there to challenge your brain. So I guess we all love trivia in our own way, and space trivia particularly is always very interesting. Well, there is the launch of a hypergolic fueled Titan II missile that had a nuclear warhead on it, scattered across America's fruited plain during the nuclear proliferation of the Cold War with Russia. And this one doesn't have a nuclear warhead. It's got 2 astronauts making the 4th trip to space in the Gemini program. On top of there, no escape tower. The only one that didn't have an escape tower, they had ejection seats that were like a jet fighter ejection seat. Gull wings would open up and shoot them out. But the problem with that, Marty, was they were being bathed in 100% oxygen for 2 hours before launch. And the pyrotechnics of an ejection seat is just a motor on a seat. And when they ignited that, they would have been flaming marshmallows coming out of that thing, is what Wally Schirra thought. So, but very unique rocket in space history. The hypergolic fuels were ready to go. All they had to do was meet each other in a chamber and they would ignite. That's why they were chosen to protect our country in those silos out there. They didn't have to be fueled. There are, of course, Jim Lovell on the left, Frank Borman on the right. Frank these are both rookie astronauts. Borman was the commander. And the bond they had the rest of their life was truly like brothers. They are wearing aviation style jet fighter headgear because that's what they actually wore underneath their spacesuits that were this special what was it? What was the name of the spacesuits? The A5. I'm going to put my glasses on here as we get you some facts here. The 14-day mission was in the lightweight spacesuit called the G5C, which proved to be uncomfortable when worn for a long time. It was supposed to be like wearing sort of like comfortable sweatpants and stuff because they were going to be up there so long. And those crash helmets are underneath this big floppy style helmet that had the big visor on it there. Let's see here. When this was launched, it was here's another picture of them in that suit. All right, carrying their air supply with them. They were to evaluate the pressure suit and short sleeve environment during 2-week flight. 8,000 pounds was the heaviest spacecraft ever launched at that time. They landed in the Atlantic Ocean, marking the first computer-controlled precision landing. All right. They're about 6 miles off, I believe, but it was a computer landing, very primitive computer back in 1865. Of course, on December 15th, on their 11th day in space, they rendezvoused with Gemini VI that was supposed to launch before them, but did not because of the target vehicle exploded. There is Gemini 6 from Gemini 7. So you actually had 7 go before what become Gemini 6A with Wally Schirra and Tom Stafford on it. The spacecraft had 2 95-pound translation thrusters, 8 23-pound attitude thrusters, 2 79 and 4 95-pound other thrusters. They did 3 scientific experiments, 4 technological, 4 experiments of the spacecraft, and 8 medical experiments. Now imagine this, Marty. You get to know each other so well that you eat, drink, change in and out of your spacesuits, and use the bathroom in each other's presence. All right, no way to get away from that. After 10 days, Frank Borman, they were pretty bored, so they were glad to see on that 11th day. There's a beautiful background that I made Marty, didn't make him, but suggested Marty change the backdrop to this beautiful moonrise in a photograph I've rarely seen over the Pacific Ocean. Look at that thin blue line up there, just magnificent. They were advised by Pete Conrad to take up a book or two with them, because Pete in Gordon Cooper's 8 Days in Space, he didn't take anything up there with him to read, and he found it quite boring, all right, up there. So Frank Borman actually said in a Discovery Channel documentary, When We Left Earth, that the last 3 days of the mission were pretty bad. Malfunctions began. Some of the thrusters stopped working after the flight. This was traced to the fact that they had an old type of laminate in the thrust chamber. Also, on the 12th day, fuel cells started to give only a partial amount of power, so the spaceship's batteries were enough to sustain it for the last 2 days of flight. On the final day, they stowed everything for reentry. They even practiced stowing garbage behind their seats and so forth during simulations. 6.4 miles from their target. They were somewhat weakened as you see them come out of the spacecraft, but I'd say not so much weakened by weightlessness, Marty, as weakened by lack of movement. And I just did a 12-hour trip from Tennessee back home here after Thanksgiving, and every time I got out of the car, man, my butt was sore from sitting down all that time. You travel a lot too. Could you just imagine 14 days without being able to stretch your legs? And they didn't want to take a heavy EVA suit up there with them, so that's why they didn't do a spacewalk. And then both of them would have protective spacesuits, because when they opened the gull wing, that was a sit-down EVA. But the lack of being able to stretch out, Marty, that would, to me, that would be something. How about you? What do you think about that? You keep physically fit.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but I think the main thing is just being weightless. You know, when the astronauts coming back from space shuttle, especially ISS, was getting used to gravity, and
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. 14 days without gravity, that's the longest any humans had ever endured that in there. But they were good spirits on the USS recovery ship Wasp. They joked to mission control about getting married after having spent so long together in space, all right? One other key note is, as you look at that picture of him, Frank apparently shaved real quickly, and Jim Lovell showing his 14-day beard there. Both these missions, 6, 7, and 6A, and 6A went up only for a day, less than a day, and then they came right back down after the rendezvous. They were supported by the U.S. Department of Defense, 10,000 personnel, 125 aircraft, and 16 ships involved in the 1965 Gemini program. And by the way, I meant to download that. It is pronounced Gemini, like the Walt Disney Pinocchio movie character Jiminy Cricket. And NASA even put out a press release that Gemini, the twins, are the constellation. Gemini is the space program. Well, there's Frank and Jim having a great time as usual together. Looks like they're holding hands there. I believe he's got his hand on his there. Uh, they would go to Oshkosh, fly in, a notorious Experimental Aviation Association meetup. They were all over the place with stuff. Marty, you got a question, comment?
Yeah, I have a question from Dean Babcock. Did Frank Borman suffer any space sickness like he did on Apollo 8?
Uh, that's a good question. Anybody know the answer to that? I certainly don't. And mine froze up here. I'm going to go back to our live broadcast there. He did get sick on Apollo 8, Dean. And Tom Celentano says he thinks Gemini 7 was the first beginning of his interest. He was age 6, and that's cool to know where it all started for you. Good morning to you and your Brecky Cliff Watson in Australia. Um, but I did not hear that, but you know what? They weren't moving around a lot. And that was, though Titov had space sickness, the cosmonaut that was the second cosmonaut to go to space. And Valentina Tereshkova did too. But, and that was pretty cramped in there. So a lot of it was turning your head left and right. So I'm going to say no, Dean, because I think that caught Frank by surprise. And he kind of had to chill out for that 2-day voyage there into of the 3 days till they got to the moon. Oh, the one thing to note, I was talking about, yes, take some books with you is what Pete Conrad said. So he could have had as the question, what books did they take with them to space? All right. Do you know what books Borman and Lovell took to space, Marty?
I have no idea.
Well, Borman read Roughing It by Mark Twain appropriately. And I challenge anybody to say they've read Roughing It by Mark Twain. I don't think I have, but that was a very popular book in the 1800s. Lovell took Drums Along the Mohawk by Walter D. Edmonds. So there's a real obscure answer to a question there. And neither one of them read much, I think. But they did sleep on the same cycle. They begged talking at a period of time to mission control because they were bored. They didn't have a whole lot to do. It was more of an endurance thing. They didn't cram a bunch of scientific things in there. I'm sure they did some stargazing and took a picture of the moon like we're showing here. So, but what a endurance! And like I said, anywhere you go tonight in a vehicle, that front seat is probably twice the room that they had in there. Let's look at that. Where's I got the spacecraft here. There's the spacecraft out at Udvar-Hazy in Washington, D.C. There you see the Gemini Paracel lander behind them that never came to fruition. All right. But I found this picture also that they said this has been moved from Udvar-Hazy to the regular Smithsonian with a display like this showing the actual capsule in there. Now, this one's been recreated very nicely. And there's the interior of the commander's side of it. And if you've not had the privilege to look inside a Gemini capsule, and hopefully you've looked at photos, what strikes me first, Marty, is it's just like a jet fighter. I mean, there's not much difference, of course. No, you've got your 8-ball there in the middle for orientation, typical clocks, bunch of switches for the thrusters and other things in there. But so imagine just wedging yourself in there weightless for 14 days, and I'm hungry, or I got to poop, or I got to pee, or I've got to do this, that, and the other. I got to cough. I got to sleep, man. Just something else. These astronauts of our Mercury and Gemini days, they overlook what we would call delicacies of being a human being, or the indecencies of our bodily functions, and it was just part of a day's routine there. And today, we got some privacy on the International Space Station. That started with the space shuttle and having a private John on it. So, but look at all the dials and switches above my head here and things you had to know. And then what always strikes me, Marty, is when I see one of these spacecraft and looking at the Gemini VIII a lot because out of Wapakoneta, Ohio, Neil Armstrong's. When you close that hatch, bingo, you're looking right out that window. The clearance of your head is just inches, depending on how tall you are. All right, there's probably inches no matter how tall you are because they would fit the seat for your torso height there. So something to look at there and revel at our first spaceships. We love to celebrate the American space program out of Spaceview Park, the paver in the ground there. I forgot to put the big monument with the Roman numerals on it, but there's the paver celebrating the launch there. We're going to talk a minute about the Olympic torch is, of course, to signify the marathon-like length of the mission. There's Jim Lovell's handprints out there. We also have his handprints at the Apollo area. How our museum was started was by our four founders, and then Charlie Mars, our godfather, harvesting handprints of Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo astronauts in some shuttle to build Spaceview Park. What happened to Borman's? Yeah, Borman's. I loaded him up, but his didn't translate on there. I've got Lovell's, but not Borman's. Sorry about that. But must have been in a different configuration, and I didn't catch that instead of a JPEG. The flown medallion up there that were flown are quite valuable. Flightline was the name of the company that had these medallions. If you get your hands on one, probably worth a couple $100. They did not put their names on the patch, although Souvenir Visions have their patch. Houston artist and animator Bill Bradley designed this. The backup crew created a parody of this that featured an unlit torch, a lighter, and the words, "Need a light, Frank, Jim?" Of course, cigarette smoking was huge back in the 60s, no matter whether you were an athlete, an astronaut, or just somebody wanting to be cool. And one of the gross things of the mission, Marty, is that the crew lost a toothbrush and ended up sharing a toothbrush, is what I've read somewhere. So, yuck. Hats off to you, though, Frank, or Jim Lovell, age 96. No doubt reliving this. I did get to see, they, of course, went to the moon together, Borman and Lovell, with Jim Anders, a rookie, in December. How ironic is that 3 years later, they are headed to the moon again, not again, but from Earth orbit to the moon. What a story these two gentlemen have together as friends. It's just so unparalleled in any endeavor, even sports to an extent, I think, to have two lifelong friends do such daring and important things for humanity. And they did orbit the moon in December, Christmas Eve, 1968, and there is Doug Forrest's rendition of an Apollo module orbiting the moon with the Earthrise. Doug, thank you for letting us share your art. He's a fabulous pencil sketch artist, not a pencil drawing artist. This is all pencil. All right. And Doug Forrest, there you are. Borman said, Doug says Borman didn't get sick because he couldn't move too much, unlike Apollo. And that's what I thought, Doug. So, and Gary Gerald backs that up. So, and we know Doug's giving us a thumbs up for showing his artwork there. So appropriate talking about Apollo 11. Well, thank you all for letting me share that about the Apollo 7 crew there. Really an unprecedented feat, quite frankly. And of course, Borman's from Cleveland, Ohio. And we got a birthday boy from Cleveland, Ohio. But let's first segue to Roberta Bondar is 78. She is Canada's first female astronaut, appropriately shown with a outdoor camera rig there, that she is a world-renowned outdoor photographer and just published a book. She was born in Sault Ste. Marie, I guess they call it Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, December 4th, 1945. She flew on Discovery orbiter on STS-42 in January 1992 on the Space Lab, performing over 40 experiments, and she is certainly well received and proud of her Canadian natives are proud of her accomplishments. I gave a tour to a Canadian journalist, Marty, about 2 months ago, and she saw our women's gallery and went right to Roberta Bonner. She goes, "Oh, you've got Roberta up here, don't you?" "Oh, yeah, there she is, our first woman in space." And I said, "Yeah, but over there's Julie Payette, you're Canadian." And she says, "Ah, Julie, we like Roberta." Julie Payette got in a lot of trouble being the Governor General of Canada, but we're not going to digress with that. We love Julie and can't wait to see her at the end of January, I think, Marty, is when she'll be out there. So happy birthday to Roberta Bondar. She is well thought of. She researched Parkinson's disease when she was in space. One of the Canada's treasure. Her published books you can find all over where books are sold. Touching the Earth is one. Landscape of Dreams. She's looked at national parks and that she saw in space and done some collages with that. So she has the Roberta Bondar Foundation not-for-profit charity. And here is dressed up to the nines. There is Ron Siga. Robert Michael Ron Siga was born December 4th, 1952 in Cleveland, Ohio. That makes him 72 years old. He has 2 space flights and were for 18 days total. He and astronaut Bonnie Dunbar were married and divorced. And he's dressed up because what job did he have after the shuttle? That fails me there. He had a government job in there. STS-60 and STS-76 in there. He went to the first joint U.S.-Russian space mission on STS-60 in there. He had a government job or some job in there that he's all dressed up for, and I don't have that, so we won't worry about that anymore. With Ron Sega, Cleveland native, born on this date 72 years ago. Well, to end our program today, I was going to do this show on the 2nd, but we got to doing with interviews, and that's always better than talking about space history in some regards. But on the 2nd, we had 4 shuttles launched. STS-27, which was a return to flight, a very close call. STS-27, as they had a lot of damage and almost burned up. Hoot Gibson, the commander of that. STS-35 was the shuttle Astro 1 on there. STS-53 was a Department of Defense mission, and STS-61 was the first Hubble fix mission with Story Musgrave and Kathy Thornton putting some glasses on the Hubble telescope. But also on December 2nd were these in space history, others orbiting the Earth, which I found interesting, that a total of 55 people were orbiting Earth on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different spacecraft, including throwing in there Skylab 3 in there. So there's all the crews on that. Again, I love juxtaposing history and seeing who was in space, what, when, and where. You'll find some interesting human stories on that. So, and also, let's see, part of that was this, the shuttles that were orbiting on December 2nd. These represent those other missions right here in space. Wait, where'd that go? That one right there. And there must be something in between there, Marty, that we didn't get transposed. So, but once again, some days of the year are just crammed with astronauts, and there's only about 2 weeks of the year that we don't have spacecraft with people in it orbiting Earth. What was interesting with STS-35 was that it was when they had STS-35 and STS 38, I think, were passing in the night. I left my notes on that over there at the table, but that's okay. Yeah, I don't have it there. So it was this period of time that we saw one of 18 times that shuttles were on the pad at the two shuttles on pad 39A and 39B. So, well, thank you all for watching today. All right. Hope that you learned something that you hadn't. Tommy Usiak, hi to you. He's saying Mike Collins was the original command module pilot on Apollo 8. He certainly was, and had back surgery. And Steve Jokums points out Frank and Jim are the Lewis and Clark of the space age. Okay, yeah, Marty, I know what I put in there was your question again, and so let's hit that question real quick. I don't know what the deal is with I don't see anybody trying to answer this one. Go ahead, Marty.
Well, the question was which future astronaut was on the game show named that tune in 1957? And Carlton Bailey and Dave Stange both got it correct. It was John Glenn.
John Glenn. All right. And he was a Marine, hoorah, back then.
Well, he had a question which I think he actually answered, but maybe Dean missed it. But there is special rates at the Hyatt for space?
Yes, there is special rates at the Hyatt. If it doesn't show up quite on your, you will get that special rate when you check out. Just see me, I guarantee it. They're actually the 3-day rate. Friday the 11th, Saturday the 12th, and Sunday the 13th is $138 at this $220 a night hotel. And they're going to honor that 3 days before and 3 days after. But we may have to adjust that up at the, just say Shuttle Fest, put Shuttle Fest in your thing there, and we will get it worked out there. But this is a big deal that you can come with the family before or after and enjoy the paradise here in the middle of Florida, from Universal to Disney World to the attractions. Got all kinds of things around here. Go pet a dolphin or you do some deep sea fishing, whatever you want to do. So it's a thing where the space lover that you are can enjoy the conference, and then your significant other can be appeased with something that they enjoy days afterwards or the same time. So we're going to hopefully sell this thing out and bring a lot of Hubble huggers in and have a great time. The only walk-ins we're going to have will be astronauts. So it will sell out. I doubt if we'll be able to sell $90 at the door, but we're welcome any astronaut locally that wants to come. I will buy you an adult beverage for your participation in there. And why wouldn't Mike McCulley, Marty want to come, or Winston Scott, and get some love from the space workers that are their heroes? So we're lining up a great Shuttle Fest from now and into the future, and somebody who's really helping me with it is Chris Calley, world-renowned space artist, as well as Tom Usiak. We'll have a panel there too. So, all right, folks, I appreciate what Steve said. You wouldn't let me guess on there. So thank you all for watching today. We've got like 1,180 episodes in the book, Marty and I do. And I've had a busy business side day as director of the museum. So if I sounded a little discursive, that's why. But I'll put my thinking cap on and we'll have a good show. Tomorrow and Friday. We're lining up some guests for next week. We've got a great public affairs office guy that Marty knows that has got some great stories to tell. And we'll have some of the regulars back in. I've got Bert Dick lined up for Thursday to do the year in review, Marty. So we're looking forward to that. And thank you all for some of your great suggestions that you're giving me. I'll take them to heart and execute them the best I can. So thank you, Marty, for a great Streamlabs job. Thank you all for watching and staying curious. And until tomorrow, I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.